All right, we're going to give a quick run through on how to run Robot Tour, which is a Division C event. The first part is this is an impound event, which means they need to collect all the robots first thing in the morning before the track, target time, other information about the track is released. Once they go to compete, which is their time slot, the event is broken into two parts. We have the setup time and the track time. The first part is the setup time. Generally what we recommend is a series of tables off to the side that the students can program on. So what you'll do is have them get their robot out of impound, bring it over to the table and set it up. This is where you're going to take a look, do a dimensional check on a robot, verify it's within the 30 by 30. You're going to review their batteries and everything, make sure their batteries are legal. You're going to look at a few other things, look for the dowel rod or a dowel rod equivalent. You're going to go through this. This is where you're going to ask them questions about programming, ask them questions about who built it at this point. And then once you've gone through all that, they get 10 minutes over here. And what we usually recommend is like a little simple egg timer, something like this, that they can do the 10 minutes. That way you don't have to track when time started and stopped. It makes it really simple. Another thing is I always recommend is a printed track for each one of the students. So this way you don't have students walking back and forth between the event and the track and everything. You can put this on the table and they can stay over here. This has the information. Just remind them they're not allowed to write on this because they did not bring it. So now once they're complete over here, they've done their 10 minutes of setup and everything, whatever they need to do over here, now we move over to the track. Now another key little fact is I am touching a robot here. One of the most important things an event supervisor, never touch a student's device. You don't want to be accused of breaking anything. So please don't, but in this case we can. So with this, the students will now move over to the track, and generally what we do, we just have them bring everything they brought over, bring it over to the track, set it down. So again, now here at the track we've got set up for you. We've used some very colorful tape here. This just is not required. You can use one color tape and everything. Tape is cheap. It makes it a lot easier for yourself. It makes it a lot easier for your helpers to have different color tape, because we do a lot of different things where we mark where the 2x4s are, because teams will run with or without 2x4s. So it makes it very nice to have that marked. I'm also running the imaginary blue 1/4 inch blue lines are the imaginary lines. Those are not required, but they are very helpful. And you can find that on Amazon, 1/4 inch wide tape, painter's tape. Works really well laying it down. That way you have your grid and now you can lay things down on top of it. The other thing is now we have new is the water bottles that are required, and this is where they're weighted. We recommend like little BBs or sand, something equivalent to the metal BBs in this. Now, we did bring out here on this track different water bottles. There are different sizes. We're after the 16.9 ounce bottle. This one is not valid. This one is. So, but we're just showing it for today. And now what you want to do is mark the track as far as where the water bottles go. Again, as an event supervisor, you pick out the layout of the track. You pick where the 2x4s go. You pick where the different gate zones and the water bottles, the start points go. And that is announced before the very first time slot for the way that works. Okay, so that's basically how a track looks like to give you an idea. A lot of diagrams up online. There's also a beautiful Google Doc that allows you to drag and drop to configure your track that you can print out. Works out very well for that. Now, when it's time for the students to compete, they get 8 minutes over here. The way the 8 minutes works is you explain usually what we recommend, explaining what you're expecting out of them. Hey, don't start your robot before we're ready. We want to make sure we get our timers ready. So we usually give a little speech explaining, because one of the things, there is so much tape on here. What I highly recommend is having you explain, hey, here's your start point, here's your target point. And generally then, there's like a target time. One of the things we also recommend in all events is never say the target time, never say it, point. Have a piece of paper on the track that is already there. That way you can't miscommunicate. They are reading this and they have no issues. Okay, so now when they get their 8 minute start, this is where they go about starting the robot, where they'd get it set up on the track. They would get it lined up, and they're required to get this dowel rod over the start point. Okay, that is something that their requirement. You don't tell them to do that. That is something they must do. It's part of the rules. At which point they get all set, they will tell you they are ready. At which point you stop their 8 minute clock. Once you stop your 8 minute clock, you get your timers ready, make sure everybody's ready in that aspect. And at which point now you tell them, okay, you may start the robot. And this is where you supply them with a number 2 pencil that they would activate the robot. And once the robot starts moving, that's when the track time counts. The event time starts again and their track time. Or their run time and their track time starts again. And so that runs through it. When the robot comes to a complete stop, that's when the time stops. So, and that's basically in this year's rules, they get up to 2 successful runs or 2 failed runs. A failed run can be as far as if the students call the robot a failed run. And that has to be why the robot is still moving. So it can't come to, like we have a lot of times, students will actually wait. They'll the robot will run around here, come to a complete stop, and then they'll go, failed run. No, it must be why the robot is still moving to call it a failed run, is one thing. The other thing is when the robot exits the track. Exiting the track is considered that all wheels are outside. This is not exiting the track because one wheel is still inside the track. As long as one contact point is still inside, it is still on the track. So then once the robot finishes, so wherever it stops at, this is now we would record their time, their run time, and then we also measure their distance, which is from the dowel rod to the point. It's a point-to-point measurement, a line measurement is what we take, and we record that information. So that basically constitutes a run. The only other thing to make sure is the 2x4s are optional. They can choose whether they want to run with those or not. They must do that before they move to the track. The water bottles are optional. They can choose that per run. One of the other things we want to explain, we've seen this a lot, what is not legal, like for example, I've seen in the past where someone would do something like this and put 2x4s around this, thinking, well, no, they can enter in through this small gap. That is in the rules this year. That is not a valid track configuration. The other thing is a contact, a good point, is contacting is obviously if anything of the wheels, but it's also if the wires brush it, anything on the robot brushes it is considered, that is contact. And again, they can only get that penalty once per run. Doesn't matter if they hit 2 or 3 or 4 2x4s, it's a one-time penalty during that run.